Food's going up again, just like it did during COVID. When 2017 prices skyrocketed, they never came back down again. We're going to experience the same exact thing. This time it's going to level up. It's going to stay there for years. IMF looking around 6% inflation for the year for food. I say it's going to be way higher because we got steaks up, burgers up, meat up, corn, wheat, rice up in price, all the vegetables, all the fruit. And now we have a plastic shortage to pack all that. So it's even going to cost more money every input. So how much more are we going to pay through these next years? Let's talk about cost inputs. Fertilizer increasing 70% in price. A lot of U.S. farmers can't afford that. So they're going to pull back on the amount of fertilizer application. And it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You pull back 1%, your crop yields are 1% lower on average. Just a easy napkin math. So if a farmer pulls back 10%, their yields are going to decline 10%. Let's look at the percentage of fertilizers pre-booked. Now, pre-booked means they bought it before the season, like right now. They bought it last quarter, somewhere probably November, December of last year, even earlier. So the Midwest, obviously, they're in front. That's the grow belt of our nation. They're always going to be on top of it, ahead of it. But look at the Southeast, only 20% of that. That means 80% of the people didn't buy it until now. In the Northeast, 30% means 70% of the farmers didn't buy until now with these elevated prices. So just the decline in the crop yield is going to drive prices up. Scarcity, less availability. That's why wheat and corn are going up. Let's look at the IMF urging members, as in every country, to be prepared for market dysfunction and liquidity squeezes, meaning money's going to dry up. Things are going to get way more expensive. Inflation is going to run to unbelievable heights. And, well, prepare your nations is what it's saying. Bottom right, IMF chief economist, severe scenario will put some economies into outright recessions with global inflation above 6% and inflation expectations hard to contain. Meaning it's going to run away. Hard to contain means they don't know where it's going. That is Fed speak or IMF speak or World Bank speak for whatever we don't know, and also get ready to brace for a minimum 6% inflation. Then you throw in what's happening up in Ireland with the fuel strikes, what's happening down in the UK or just in England in general here. UK farmers considering nationwide fuel and fertilizer protests. Oh, you can't do that. Diesel's risen 63% during this. Now we're going to debase the currency because we're moving into a new financial system here based on stable coins and on-demand liquidity. And the old fiat system is crumbling. Let's take a look at the Romans. And we can see the march in time as we move forward. It gets more and more debased. But look at that. It's by the decade. Look how fast that happens from, say, 2040 to 2070. That 30 years, it went from 40% fine silver to 5% fine silver. So you can see how the debasement took 30 years, and then the collapse ensued as soon after. This is why they're talking about energy lockdowns this time. Because of all of that. People getting angry, people getting hungry. We're going to need to lock you down so you can't cause too much trouble. And I would point out, remember in 2019, at the end before COVID started, there was a international set of protests against every central bank that was planned across the world. Now, it had reached about 20 to 22 daily protests in front of all the central banks in 22 nations. That was quickly going to 23, 25, 27, 30. And the powers that be said, we can't have this. There's too much awareness on the debasement of the currency from the central banking system. One protest, one country, not a worry. 20 protests, 20 countries, daily, big. Suddenly, COVID comes. And we had an ability to print money forever with not a single question asked. And you know what stopped? All those protests stopped. So here we are. We're on another one. People are going to start protesting fuel and food, and just daily cost of living rises, as well as insurance and all these other things. It's going to get nasty. These people are going to get incredibly angry. And what do you think is going to happen? My bet is on past as a possible scenario for the future. They're going to try to lock everything down. The copper supply chain is breaking, and that's a defense problem. Every radar system, power grid, data center, weapons platform, and secure communications network depends on copper. While the mainstream media sleeps, the U.S. government is moving under emergency authorities to lock down domestic supply. And if you understand how modern defense and infrastructure work, you already know where this is heading. The government just issued a direct order, immediate measures to increase American mineral production. They specifically named the Palmer Project in Alaska as a priority. This isn't wishful thinking, it's a White House directive. Vizsla Copper owns 100% of the Palmer Project, an asset believed to host in-ground value in the billions of copper, zinc, and critical minerals. The government is signing, we need domestic supply and we need it now. Vizsla Copper acquired Palmer last year when I first featured them, and since then the story has only strengthened. Now they have the full backing of the Alaskan governor, and with Trump announcing a proposed $12 billion U.S. strategic critical mineral reserve, the timing couldn't be better. Backed by the same team that built Vizsla Silver into a billion-dollar company, they're not guessing, they're executing. They control millions of pounds of copper at their flagship property, and now they've positioned directly inside America's critical mineral strategy. When the government names your project a solution, that's not luck, that's positioning. Here's what matters. Owning physical, government-backed domestic mineral supply is one of the most direct ways to prepare for what's coming. When supply chains tighten, and they will, the assets sitting in the ground with government backing are what hold value. Other Alaskan projects with this level of support moved over 200%. Vizsla Copper trades under the ticker VCUFF in the US and VCU.V in Canada, and is now the focal point of America's copper solution. Do your own research. Thanks to Vizsla Copper Corp for sponsoring today's video. You can get their latest presentation here on their website, VizslaInvestorDeck.com/ADAPT2030. Vizsla Copper Corp. Check out the possibilities. That's Vizsla-Investor-Deck.com/ADAPT2030. Click on that link in the description box below. Just my assessment on it all. You can take a look, see what you agree, disagree. But if the people are starting to get to that point of global movement toward a single point of something that needs to change, global governments can't have that. No way. That's exactly what happened with the 2019 central bank protests. They stopped in an instant. You had to lock down and stay at home. No more protests, can't go outside. Remember that? As well, it's snowing in Algeria. Yeah, North Algeria. This is another thing that's happening, the disrupted weather patterns, because I'm going to say it's the increased emissions from the war and the smoke and the movements of vehicles, planes, stratotankers, whatever's moving over there, plus all the destroyed infrastructure. And the fuels in these types of conflicts are not the same clean fuels that we are mandated, and the biodiesels in airplanes and things. It's none too friendly. But we are getting snow in northern Algeria at this time of the year, which is just generally not normal anyway. And if we swing down to Asir province in Saudi Arabia, we see record flooding again. But what's so interesting, if you swing into the higher elevations during the same storm, we got snow and also hail and the group hell, that sort of like icier, and we see the same road conditions. What do we see? It's like icy hail coming down. I'm saying this is all related to the amount of emissions in the sky, particulates, cloud. I wouldn't even say seeding. It's seeding itself with all the pollution up there. These are the floods in Saudi Arabia, and not something you see every day. And then we have the first ever, according to some, recorded EF1 tornado, like proper tornado, touching down in Qatar. They also had the first ever recorded tornado ever in history there in Jammu and Kashmir, northern India. Now, jumping back onto the food for just a moment here. Chart of the week for you. 20-year global food price index. Notice where the start point is before it runs up every single time. So left of the chart, 2006, and then it takes a couple years until we get to 2008 crisis. The beginning point is what you're looking at. And then it culminates and it hits somewhere. Takes a couple years to come back down, and then that's the beginning point again of the 2011. That's was the incredible prices of food. Remember that? That was insane food pricing. Fertilizers went off, crop yields were down, and then it took a good 4 or plus years for that to come down. Our start point at 2020 was the COVID, and it marched up all the way to 2022 and peaked out another 2 years. So I'm looking at these 2-year intervals from start until you get max pricing, pretty much. We're in March of 2026. This is the next leg up. So this is our beginning area and beginning price. What do you see there? This is the highest ever where it's begun to go up. That's the thing. The start point is different. The start point is already at near record high food prices. Because you saw those other ones, it was substantially lower on the base of just overall food cost before it kicked into high gear, and we saw those percentages run away. Now, if we're going to game this out, they need to put other bands on the chart going far higher. And a lot of people who are way smarter than me predicting going out on this, that it's going to get to the point where governments are going to have to subsidize food for a majority of the population on the planet if it continues the way it is, because we're looking at the disruptions for a minimum 9 months of already what's happened. If there's another, reflaring up or hostilities and it blocks again, that's just going to extend that out. So at the very minimum from today, we're looking at a minimum of 9 months of elevated prices for, food, fuel, and disruptions of plastics. India is already being crushed by plastics disruptions for rice bags. I'll come to that in a second. But the start point for this run up in food prices is going to be unprecedented. It's going to take us into the world's going to need to figure out an entirely new system. And lo and behold, they have one ready to go. It's called digital and stable coins, central bank digital currencies, just waiting on the shelf. Perfect way to roll it out, isn't it? And if we get a much tighter in look here from January 2024 on the left to where we sit now, that's the entry point where we start moving forward upward. And speaking of upward, here is your corn price. And this is just going to continue up, especially when more and more of these reports come in of who's not planting and how many acres are not planted. That'll be the same with every crop. This is going to be a copy paste, copy paste, copy paste on all charts. Food related, rice, corn, wheat, barley, sorghum, millet, they're all going to follow the same. Not financial advice, but it's just supply and demand, common sense. And then add into this at the exact same time. I think this is sort of a looping, figure eight in on itself. We get the higher elevated diesel prices, which elevate the natural gas prices, which elevate the fertilizer prices, which then elevate the food prices because farmers can't afford all that. And it's just in this circle. It's an infinite circle of who knows when it'll end. We're going to have to break some chain of it for it to stop. All uncooked beef steaks, record highest price ever. That's an AH on the ever. And this is going to continue upward as well because the feed costs going in, they call it the feedstock wall. There's a proper term for this. When the food for the cattle, the feed, gets so expensive, it drives these costs on the actual price of the beef because of inputs and the diesel and the corn and everything that goes in or whatever they're going to be pushing in there. The feed costs, they call it, there's a proper term for that. So look for it in the news popping out. So Australian growers are shifting to less fertilizer intensive crops, which means the crops that used to be normal at a certain percentage already forecast out. That forecast is wiped clean because it doesn't stand any longer. And you see how that just kind of loops in on itself. Those forecasts are not viable any longer because if they're going to do it in Australia to switch crops, they're doing it in Europe too. They're going to do it in the United States or they're just not going to plant. So we get a couple of scenarios where they're going to switch crops. They're going to rotate them out for the less intensive, like corn, heavy feeder, sorghum, heavy feeder. So that's why part of the corn price is starting to run because they already have a lot of farmers that say they're going to switch. They're going to plant different crops. Now I'm going to have to get you a breakdown because I am unaware myself which exact crops they're going to rotate off to. But I know it's not going to be sorghum. They were already at 100-year lows for sorghum production a few years ago anyway. So that's not coming back anytime soon. Amaranth, that's not really a commercial crop in America. It is in other parts of the world, South America. But what are we going to switch to and how is that going to change the price of everything? Because if they suddenly stop planting, let's say corn, and half the farmers in the world go away from corn because they don't have the fertilizer for it, then what happens to the corn price? And you can kind of that's the new forecast is where they transition to, what they're moving away from, and what they're moving away from, that's the thing that's going to run highest in, the price because the availability won't be there. Again, not financial advice. It is just, the way it's been through history. You have less of something, it's going to cost you more, especially on the food, especially they're going to need it for ethanol, right? They're going to have to change some fuel standard emissions laws in America. If we don't have the corn for the ethanol and food's getting super expensive. We're not going to be driving a bunch of food into our gas tanks because that'll be another political disaster. So it's like out of the frying pan into another disaster inside a frying. It's like what are those Russian dolls inside a frying pan and a frying pan and a frying pan until eventually we pop out. But again, you got to break the chain. Where's that going to go? Where's that first thing that pulls away? Like if diesel prices crash, that would be a break of the chain, and then everything subsequently would follow it in time. But prices, they rise and they really never come back down. And they retreat far, far slower. I should have a turtle talking and far slower. Then the prices go up right away. That's just the way it is. So then you're looking at years, 4 or 5 years before the prices are going to come down. How long did it take after COVID before things stabilized, then came down? Well, most of it never came down. The things that did come down, what's that, 4 years after? So you can kind of use that as a gauge in the playbook on how long it's going to take for these prices to come down. Once that first chain, breaks, that first link in the chain, once it gets pulled and something stabilizes again, then everything else will follow in time. But right now, that loop is going strong. And U.S. winter wheat enters spring in the worst shape in years. Winter wheat condition, good to excellent. We're way down at that 35%. Still tight out there for getting moisture into the soils. Drought tightens grip on the winter wheat. 65% of the winter wheat crop in drought. I know they're harvesting now, and even in Tennessee, they were getting on it in the last, maturation phase. So we will see. It could be good for drying, and they won't have to probably use a bunch of glyphosate and run it through the dehydrators and thing if they can get it dry on the stem out there. But for planting, not good. And just the last couple quick points here. All that plastic that you see for wrapping, that is all going up in price. Now the naphtha, that's getting short out here for most of plastics in Taiwan is already cutting back. So one of the world's largest plastic manufacturers like, whoa, we don't even have the input to keep going here. So what you see there, how much disruption will that cause if the plastic films aren't there? And we're just talking about something simple like saran wrap. What about the styrofoams? What about the plastics, like the harder plastics that are there that are in the blueberries and that second shelf down, and strawberries and raspberries? How are we going to pack our foods? We're going to have to go bulk. You're going to have to learn how to buy something different. And then here's the big one. India is hit with a polypropylene bag shortage. A PP bag is what they call it, raffia bags. And they just can't pack the rice anymore. So their disruption is a 50-kilogram bag, which is for export. It's like over 100 pounds. But they're also having disruption on the 25 kg bag, which is, I'm going to say roughly 50 pounds. It's not exact, but just for a measurement one. And then they got the 10 and the 5 kg bag. So for us in America, that'd be like a 10-pound bag of something. That's not available anymore. They're running out of bags. So they're having to try to rethink how to get rice out to everybody, causing huge, huge, huge disruptions. And it's not that the food's not there. It's just the packaging of the plastics to put the food in isn't there. And it's already causing a tremendous unwind in the supply chains. So that, the export bags at 50 kg, over 100 pounds, those are outbound. So their exports are hit. Okay, but the rest of that comes in. Have you ever bought a 50-pound bag? I have. Sugar, that sort of thing. Beans, 25-pound bag. Well, that would be more like the 12-kilogram bag, or 10-pound or 10-kilogram bag would be right around 22.5 pounds. Those are the other ones that aren't being facilitated, packed to ship. So even the supermarkets, they've run out of rice, but rice is a staple in India. So now they're going back and trying to scoop things out, put it in a bag, put it on the weight scale. It takes a tremendously longer amount of time to sell. You could just walk in, pick up a 10-pound bag of rice, 10-pound bag of beans, walk out. Now you need, hold on, wait in line. Vendor needs to weigh it. Did you bring your own bag? By the way, they ran out of bags. Plastic bags, you got to pay like how much? 2 rupees or something like that for a plastic bag now. They've increased the price on what you had to pay for the plastic bags. So anyway, did you bring your own plastic bag? And this is a whole thing that's going to need to be rethought for our world as well. Just like in COVID, it happened here first, and then it hit the States. And I remember I came back after I was traveling in Europe and then back through Asia. And I went back to the States directly just before COVID hit. I was like, you all need to get ready. This thing is tremendously wiping out Asia. And I remember everybody so smug, like, we have the best medical system in the world. Nothing's going to happen here. Are you crazy? That's Asia. And whoa, we got steamrolled. Well, I am absolutely really telling you the same exact thing. The plastics are disrupting life because they don't have anything to pack the food in. Now it's starting here first. it's going there next. So how just get ahead of the curve. Like, how are you going to get food in bulk, or how are you going to shop differently based on these disruptions? If you can't get everything in your little tiny plastic thing on a one serving of like one apple or 6 apples at a time, you're going to have to buy a bushel from a farmer or something. I don't know. You're going to have to figure it out. But anyway, I appreciate you watching. I hope you got something out of our talk today. Growing your own food is going to be an integral part moving forward. TrueLeafMarket.com, heirloom organic seeds for any grow zone on the planet. My favorite seed supplier. I use them. And I love the germination rate. We get really high germination rate out of that. I cannot rave highly enough about the seeds because they get different seeds, heirloom and organic seeds, which means if you save the seed, you can use it next year. Any grow zone that you're growing in, they have seeds for. So give them a look there. I've already pre-vetted and used the seeds for forever. And I really appreciate the quality of the seeds that come out. And they really have every possible thing, because I grew tobacco for a couple of years, was delving into that. So even if you want to get your, natural pesticides, neonicotinoids, keep them away from the bees though. But it is a way to produce pesticides naturally by soaking those tobacco leaves in water and then adding in cayenne pepper and then spraying around. You have insect problems. You don't need to rely on the chemical if you can grow it yourself. So look at those substitutes that have been used for history. What can we substitute? You can grow yourself for the same product that you're buying in a store now that comes in a plastic bottle. Please share with your friends, family. You're going to have to copy the link and post it yourself, because the algorithm's none too kind. So please help me out. Share this information. Really important that we all have this conversation together. I will see you next time. And please remember, subscribe to the channel. Everybody's getting unsubscribed. You got to subscribe, click the bell again. I can't even believe I need to say that. Please subscribe to the channel again. Next time, bye for now.